It was the early 1800s in Nohant when Amantine Lucille Aurore Dudevant left her husband and entered upon a 4 or 5 year period of romantic rebellion. She moved and started writing compelling rustic novels which included many scandalous love stories. While writing these novels, she had affairs with many different men, including some famous writers. Dudevant was one of the first prolific women writers who challenged many of the social conformities placed upon women in the 1830s. Amantine Dudevant wrote many prodigious novels, including Valentine and Leila, which had an ideal of free association and extended to the wider sphere of social and class relationships. Valentine is the first of many fan novels in which the hero is a peasant or a workman. These novels challenged what society deemed acceptable, which made Dudevant write under a pseudonym, George Sand. Most of her early work includes Leila, Morpart, Spiridon, and Les Sept Cordes de la Lyre, which show the influence of one or another of the men with whom she associated. Indiana was the first novel she used the pseudonym George Sand. It brought her immediate fame and is a passionate protest against the social conventions that bind a wife to her husband against her will, an apologia for a heroine who abandons an unhappy marriage and finds love. And later on, in the 1840s, Dudevant wrote a number of novels which exposed her socialist doctrine, joined with the humanitarian religion. However, Dudevant didn't only challenge the social norms with her novels, but also with her style of dressing, habits, and affairs. Dudevant's reputation began to be questioned when she began wearing men's clothing in public. This had never been seen before, making her unique and shocking. She justified the clothes by explaining they are far more sturdier and less expensive than the typical dress of a noble woman at that time. In addition to being comfortable, the male dress enabled her to circulate more freely in Paris than most of her female contemporaries, and gave her increased access to venues from which women were often barred, even women of her social standing. Not only were her ways in clothing shocking, but she also had a habit of smoking tobacco in public, which neither peerage nor gentry had yet sanctioned the free indulgence of women in such a habit, especially in public. Her beliefs were also very unique to that time. She demanded for women the freedom in living that was a matter of course to the men of her day, and it was in love that she demanded equality, in the free choice of the love object. The inequality of men and women before the law seemed to her a scandal. The actions received many criticism from her peers. One consequence of the many unorthodox aspects of her life was she obliged to relinquish some of her privileges appertaining to a baroness. Though the mores of the period did permit upper-class wives to live physically separate from their husbands without losing face, provided the estranged couple exhibited no blatant irregularity to the outside world. A fellow writer and novelist, Charles Baudelaire, wrote about Dudevant, "She is stupid, heavy, and garrulous. Her ideas on morals have the same depth of judgment and delicacy of feeling as those of janitress and kept woman." The fact that there are men who could become enamored of this slut is indeed a proof of the abasement of the men of this generation. However, many other novelists were empowered by her and loved working with her. Ivan Turgenev, a short story novelist, wrote what a brave man she was and what a good woman. Dudevant challenged the conformity of her time openly and admirably. She changed how women writers were viewed and even changed how women presented themselves. She was lewd and crude, but an outstanding woman. She cared about the equality of women long before women saw it as an inequality. She changed her entire life to follow her dreams and never once apologized for who she was. Amantine Lucille Aurore Dudevant was one of the most prolific women writers of her time.